Community in Fredericksburg is growing, and we know that people choose to live here, and for very good reason. It's important that we have resources in place so that people can take care of themselves, so that our economy can keep moving, so that this community can continue to thrive. And this is our opportunity to help them stay well and stay part of the community as contributing members.
Please join us in keeping Fredericksburg and Gillespie County special. Be Texas friendly. Share the road. Put litter in its place. Respect private property. And protect our dark skies. Thank you for caring about.
This is Fbg.Live. From touchdowns and concerts to weddings and Christmas parades. Live video production right here in Fredericksburg, Texas. Live, local, here for you. Fbg.Live, capturing your moment for generations to enjoy.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for being at Coffee with the City Manager this morning. I'm going to call this Coffee with the City and the County. Again, we have a special guest with us today, Don Weinheimer, County Commissioner. I'm going to put him on the spot a little bit later, so he knows I'm going to do that. Before I get started, we do have a number of council members in the room, a number of former council members, a number of council candidates. I'll start with Emily Kirchner, Mayor Pro Tem, is with us today. Tony Klein, council member. We'll talk a little bit about the election, but Emily is running for the mayor's seat. Tony is running for re-election. I'm going to try to get this right now. We have Charlie Keeney, former council member, former mayor, running for council again. Jerry Luckenbach is with us, running for council, one of 2 seats. We have Randy Briley. Sorry, I'm going from left to right. Running for mayor, former council member with us today, Tim Dooley. Former council member, Tom Musselman. And finally, Graham Pearson. Did I miss anyone? Not running. Graham was on count. Graham's not running. Tim's not running. Tom's not running. But they were actually 2 of them on council when I started back in 2013. So we'll talk about the election coming up in just a little bit. We'll also give the candidates an opportunity, and I'm going to have a timer to say just a little bit about running for council. So I'm going to jump right in. We have a special guest speaker with us today by request. We have Scott Fair, Chief Appraiser with the Gillespie County Central Appraisal District. I'm going to kick off with him, and then I have a number of other topics to cover today. So, Scott Fair, thank you for being with us.
Good morning. I have a lot of information here. I'm going to try to fly through it so I can answer questions. I want to answer what you all want to know. I don't want to bore you with this information, but some of this information I do think is very important. Central appraisal districts are a political subdivision of the state. We are our own type of governmental entity. We are not part of the county, we're not part of the city, we're not part of the state. We're independent, our own political subdivision type. There's 253 of us in the state, there's 254 counties. 2 counties do share an appraisal district. That's a trivia question. You can ask me later. Why were we created? We're created in 1979, the Pivotal Bill. 1979, I was not working in appraisal districts at the time, but they were created to centralize the appraisal of property. Before then, the county might be appraising property, the city might be appraising property using a little different system, 2 different values, appraising at 80% of market value or whatever they were doing. Smaller districts, they might have latched on or had another appraisal. You might have had 3, 4, 5 appraisals in some parts of the state. They did that to centralize. One of the first things is to centralize it to 1 appraisal for the property. All the taxing units had to use 1 appraisal. The second reason was to correct inequity and poor appraisal work, which goes along with different systems and whatnot. The third is to avoid additional school finance litigation. This is 1979, they wrote it. 1980 it came in to eliminate litigation over school finances. Didn't work. It's been litigated multiple times since then. And to restrict political influence. They tell me way back in the day, if I had a problem with the way the county was appraising my property, I went to the county commissioners with my protest. I went to the people that I elected with my protest. They want my vote again. I'm not elected. That takes part of the political influence out of it. So, duties of the CAD, our main duty for an appraisal district is the appraisal of property for all of the taxing units within our jurisdiction to use. We also administer tax exemptions and special valuations. Ag use is a special valuation. Everybody calls it an exemption. It's a special valuation. That's typically the only special valuation we have in the county. Another responsibility is to create maps. How many people know we have a website? The appraisal district has a website. How many people know we have a map on the website? So we're in charge of upkeep of the ownership of those maps. Those maps are really for our purpose to be able to get to a property. They are not survey quality. If you find errors though, please contact our office. We'll try to get them fixed. The last thing on here is we may assess property taxes. Back in 2015, the Gillespie Central Appraisal District took over the collection of property taxes for all of the taxing units in Gillespie County. We were asked to do that. We do that by contract. Everything else we do in our office is by property tax code book or by state laws. This is by contract with the state, with the taxing units. They wanted to change. We accepted. We've been collecting taxes. I will tell you it is good in a way because if you have a problem with your appraisal or your taxes, you come to one office. You go to different sides, but you come to one office. You don't have to go across town to the other office. So. In the state of Texas, the Board of Directors is elected by the voting taxing units. In Gillespie County, the voting taxing units are the 3 school districts, Fredericksburg, Harper, and Doss, the county, and the city. So we have 5 voting taxing units that elect my Board of Directors, my bosses. Well, what are the duties of the Board of Directors? The biggest duty is they hire a chief appraiser. The chief appraiser then is the manager of the appraisal district. They adopt general policies. They have policies and guidelines. They enter into contracts. I cannot enter into contracts. The Board of Directors has to enter into contracts. They approve a budget for the appraisal district that is then sent to all of the voting taxing units to approve or disapprove a little bit later in the year. And the interesting thing is, one of their duties is a negative. They cannot be involved in the appraisal of properties. So it is me. They hire me to do the appraisals. The oversight for me is not great, but there's also tarring, feathering, and lynching if I get a little too crazy about things. This last part, I'm not going to read everything through here. You all have some handouts. I'm going to skip to the basics, and it's called ex parte communication. It means a communication outside of an area. In ex parte communication, my Board of Directors cannot talk to me about the appraisals of property. It is a Class C misdemeanor if they talk to me about the properties outside of an open meeting, a public meeting. Even if it's their own property, they're not supposed to talk to me about it. They're supposed to do it in an open meeting. I don't agree with that, but that's what the law is. It is a Class C misdemeanor for them to try to influence my appraisals. Worse than that, taxing units. I've been in appraisal districts for 28 years. Through the years, I've heard multiple times. The appraisal districts, the county, the city, the school, whoever it is, they wanted more money. They told the appraisal district to go up on values. In 28 years, that has never happened to me. So, but the legislature took care of that because where the Board of Directors is a Class C misdemeanor, it is a Class A misdemeanor for anybody, any public official from any taxing unit to try to influence my appraisals. So, we're in an open meeting today, so I don't have to worry about it. We're being live streamed, so I can ask questions or answer questions from city people. But generally, there's a safeguard in here, and I have said that to some of the taxing units when I go to talk to them. Is if questions come up or direction it goes a certain direction, I have to stop, and I can't do it. So we don't have any direct local oversight, except for the taxing units could get mad at me and talk to the Board of Directors that they elected and fire me. And that is something that can happen. But otherwise, what oversight do we have? We don't have direct oversight, but we have a lot of oversight from the Texas Comptroller. There's a special division of them, the Property Tax Assistance Division. They claim they assist taxpayers and they claim they assist appraisal districts. They do. They have a lot of information. It's a great website if you can navigate around it. They have lots of information, lots of forms, lots of documents, and we often send people there to get a state form if they need to get one. Other than that, they test us. They test us every year. For us, in odd years, we get tested on our values. Every school district gets tested on the values. They do what they call a ratio study for us, and if we fall outside of compliance with that ratio study, they take money away from the school. They say that if we're too low, the locals should be paying more taxes, so they're not going to give us much state aid. If they actually will take money away too if we're too high, saying that you're overpaying. But typically an appraisal district gets in trouble when they're too low. And so that is one way they control how we appraise our properties. Is if we're outside of compliance, the typical compliance is 95 to 105% of what they think the value should be, then they can start taking money away from the school districts. Another way that they test us, we just finished going through this about 2 weeks ago. In even years, they send an auditor to our office, and they audit our methods, our assistance, our procedures. They go through everything, it seems like. There was actually 78 questions that they had to have documentation or explanations on, and it took several days to get through that. I won't complain about that. They do make our office better, particularly in the assistance part. But that is, we are monitored by the comptroller in those two ways. So jumping on to the next point, I know they all have questions that I'm not going to cover. So basically, how do we do an appraisal? We discover, we analyze, and we value. How do we discover? That is one of the things that probably a question or two later will come up. How do we discover? We discover by sight. Driving around, we see a new rooftop, probably a new structure. We see a sign, construction sign, pool sign. We see for sale signs. Wonder what's going on with that. We see signs. It's just sight. It's observation. Permits. We get, thankfully the city works with us. We get all the permits from the city to see what's going on there. We get the permits from the county, the septic permits from the county. We get CTEC hookups, and there's some other online things that are not necessarily permits, but that we can dig out and see construction information on. So speaking of websites, online websites, it's the internet. You can find all kinds of things. You just have to find the nooks and crannies where it's located. We do have multiple things that we search, places we go on the website, on the internet, websites to find information. Aerial photography. No, we do not have helicopters. No, we do not have drones. But we have aerial photography. We use free aerial photography when we get it. Every 3 years, we get a new aerial photography shot. Actually, we share with the city on that. The city aerials, in a cooperation, we get some better quality, but we can only afford to do that every 3 years. We can see new structures there. We can see changes to structures. We can see where structures disappeared. And so the next discovery is newspaper and magazines, local magazines. You see new businesses coming in, you see pictures of businesses, and look, you think that didn't look like that last year, we need to go investigate. So all kinds of different ways. And the last thing is, I wrote on there communication with taxpayers. It's more communication with humans. You don't have to be a taxpayer. We have people that come in and talk about their neighbors, talk about the subdivision, talk about the thing down the road they don't like, and what are we going to do about it? And so, or they bring in information when they're filing a protest, saying their value is too high. They will bring in information about other properties. So we do get a lot of information, a lot of different ways. People ask, how do you discover? Any way I can that's legal. So. Next thing we do is analysis. We inspect the property, and this is sort of at a baseline. We inspect the property, measure and categorize the structures and the land, and we enter that into the software. We have computer-assisted mass appraisal software. We call it the appraisal software. That basically everything we do is entered in there. Forms are entered in there. It handles our valuations, our exemptions. It's a pretty big software. So once we get everything entered, we also, when we start the valuation process, sales. We are required to appraise at market value. So market value is typically indicated by sales. So we are always chasing sales. We're always chasing the market. We're not the market, we chase the market. We chase it up, we chase it down. There's lag time. We gather sales, analyze the sales. And the best analogy I can say is we have all these properties, 36,000 properties. We drop the properties into baskets. We put all these properties in baskets. We start getting sales information. We drop those in the appropriate baskets. So we're comparing like properties to properties that sold and moving our valuations. And that is the first valuation method. There's actually 3 valuations. The most common we use is the sales analysis. The second one is construction costs. We call it the cost. We use a national cost guide to derive a cost. The cost is the least effective, least valid, in my opinion, way to appraise properties, because you're looking at a national model to determine what something in Fredericksburg, Texas was purchased or built for. The last thing is income and expense information. We use an income and expense analysis. It doesn't work on residential. There is no income to residential, so that is really for commercial properties. The biggest problem with that is same thing with sales. Texas is a non-disclosure state. We don't get all the sales information. We get even less income and expense information. We can, on some types of properties, in short-term rentals, hot receipts, we can get income. That's not all the income, but it's none of the expenses. So we can get partial information here and there, and we try to do our best to use some other resources, if we can't find anything local, to build the rest of it and create a model. It's more of a pro forma model typically than an actual, because we don't have it unless the individual walks in and says, here's all my income and expense, here's my year ending information, my rent roll, here it all is, and we will go through it and we can develop an income. So that is sort of hitting the highlights. I know there's questions, and I would love to answer your questions instead of talk more about this. So I will.
Just a quick reminder, we'll get a mic to you, so raise your hand so our audience at home on Fbg.Live can hear your question.
Scott, would you please tell the audience what the resolution is on the aerial photography, please?
The resolution we currently have on aerial photography is 6 inches per pixel. In the city, it is better than that. I believe 3 inches. Nobody's disagreeing in the city. I forget over time. I can remember when I started here in Gillespie Central Appraisal District in 2001, we were using 1 meter resolution aerials. That means every pixel on the screen was 33 inches by 33 inches. Now we're at 6 inches by 6 inches. We can see livestock in the pastures. It's not the best that we could buy better, but our bank is not big enough to buy the best that they will offer to us.
Under valuation, you use the term like for like. Can you kind of expand a little bit how you determine what is like for like?
We use generally we use a categorization system for residences. We categorize them by exterior features, stone veneer or not stone veneer, limestone block if it is a traditional limestone block. So that is a general category, and then we have quality classes based on construction materials, construction quality, and design of the structure. So it is, let me put this out here. Every appraisal everywhere in the universe is an opinion of value. We tried to use a system to limit the opinion and have it more reproducible across the board. So we use categories to drop it in there. That is in residential. In commercial, it's by type of property. Short-term rentals, we put those zebras in their own category, short-term rentals.
How do you prepare the pro formas?
How do I prepare? Our pro forma is probably different than what most people think in a long document. My pro forma is a spreadsheet that I can print out 8.5 by 11. All the documentation is other pages, but it's income, all the types of income for a property, minus the expenses, all the allowable expenses for the property, and a cap rate, a capitalization rate. So it's income minus expenses divided by the cap rate, and that's your value. That's the simplest way to say it.
For values for your district.
How do we create we really don't, we have I call it a model. I call it more of a model than a pro forma. So it's a complex system when we have 36,000 properties and really very few are identical to each other. So we have all these different things, and we're using mass appraisal. Mass appraisal, all appraisal districts are supposed to appraise by mass appraisal. In mass appraisal, our target is 100% of value based on sales information. Statistically, if my value, if I'm at 100% of value, half of my properties are overvalued and half of my properties are undervalued, and based on statistics. So our target is 100%, knowing that we're going to have a range. We try to keep that range statistically good. But that's, in doing that, it's appraising, it's valuing, testing by ratio studies, modifying, testing by ratio studies. So that's sort of a process before we send out notices. Does that answer it? Okay.
Scott, it's on. I have a question. By the way, thank you for what you do, because in the fall of every year, you're the most hated man in Gillespie County. So a question on appraisals. So Main Street commercial property last year saw a significant increase in valuation. Is property value, say on Main Street, based upon sales of like properties?
Main Street, Fredericksburg.
It's a unique situation.
Yes, Main Street, Fredericksburg is a unique situation. And I've been here for 24 years. And we think, we being the appraisers in the appraisal district, think that Main Street is valued really high. And then we get some sales information and use a few expletives and raise the values. And then a couple of years later, we get a sale and we're like, is that really true? When we get 5 sales in 1 year, it's true.
Right. Right. So I guess the issue here is, if we're basing things on sales, it seems to be real easy for values to go up, but then how do you determine if values are going down? It could be that we are in a unique situation in Fredericksburg where values don't go down. And I understand that Main Street property is that if you want a piece of property and you have the money to buy a piece of property, you're going to buy the piece of property and you don't really care what it costs. Because we got a lot of people that have the ability to buy property and they don't care what it costs. So in your opinion, as an appraiser, as a professional appraiser, do you see property values, it's easier to increase them than it is to decrease them? And does the only way that property values decreased is somebody's got to eat it?
I'll start off that answer with, we have to have the information. And for sales information, I will just blatantly say we beg, borrow, and steal to get sales information. We request it from buyers and sellers, but then after that, we beg, borrow, and steal and pay for. And we do not have MLS data. We're not allowed to be on the MLS. We don't have MLS data unless an individual hands it to us as part of a record. So we need sales information to move anywhere. And that's one of the things this year. I'm looking at sales, I'm in the analysis phase, and I'm wondering what's going on, because I just don't have as much sales information this year as I've had in previous years. So yes, I would answer that it's just as easy for an appraisal district to drop values as it is to go up, if we have the data to show it. That's the key. That is the key to movement of values, period. Now, the state's always typically saying I'm low. Actually, they agreed with my values last year, so pretty much. So I felt pretty good last year, but it's moving and moving with what the sales information says either way. If we have one sale, people will come in and say, you have one sale, that's not a market. Well, I would tend to agree, but if we have one sale and that's it, we've got to figure out something and try to dig into that sale and see. But when we have 2 or 3 sales, that's 4 sales, 5 sales in a neighborhood that is it gives us indications. So we start moving.
So you have 36,000 properties in town. Can you give us a breakdown of how many are commercial businesses as opposed to a residence and, excuse me.
I can give you real general numbers. I don't have them memorized. I can give you real general numbers in that we have, I think 1,300-ish, maybe more now, short-term rentals. We have about 1,200-ish other commercial properties, or commercial properties in the more traditional sense. Residences, I don't know, but I believe we have something like 7,000 homesteads in Fredericksburg, so there's more residences than that. Vacant land, I don't know overall the breakdown of those, but that probably you're more interested in the commercial, which is a little easier. Yes, ma'am.
Scott, number one, wanted to thank your staff. The staff at the office, we had an occasion to go in there yesterday, and they were just absolutely awesome. They were just so nice and smiled and handled. It may not have been what we wanted to hear, but you know what? It is what it is. But my main question is, we've had a lot of development come up recently. And you kind of covered this when you were talking about range and everything. But when there's a brand new development very, very close to where we are, does the actual appraisal value of those new homes wash over into our older street that has homes that are 50 years old as compared to the new one? Is there anything that kind of flows over?
The shortest answer, maybe. The long answer, probably not, unless the new development is of the same quality and character as the surrounding development. So often it seems like in Fredericksburg there will be an area that'll pop up and it'll be different than the surrounding area. And so those don't directly, they're going to fall in another basket. You'll be in one basket, they're going to fall in another basket, typically. But maybe they fall in the same basket.
Scott, thanks very much. Appreciate this, and thanks for your service. And I echo the comment, great staff. They really are very customer-oriented. You said you've been here for 24 years. I spent a lot of time, for historical purposes, looking at your website on the history of the properties and that sort of stuff. The county courthouse has the record of deeds. Where's the data between 6 or 7 years ago and 100 years ago? In other words, these properties have been appraised for a long time. That indicates when they were changed use, when they were, additional things were built to them. But your website only goes back a few years. Where's the other data? I presume it's stored someplace on a computer.
It depends on what type of data you're looking for. If you're just looking for values and ownership, our computer system goes back to 1995. There was a data conversion, they tell me, in 1995, or they went on to a conversion, and everything before 95 is not in our computer. So from 1980 to 1995 is not in our computer. We have records, written records. We have volumes of certified appraisal rolls in storage in our office that go back to 1981-ish. So it is cumbersome, it's alphabetical, and it'll basically give you the owner, the address, and the value, I believe. It doesn't go in depth. It's on green bar. Remember green bar paper? It's on a long green bar. We also have it, I think from earlier than that, we have it on various media types that I don't know if there is a device in Gillespie County that can read that anymore. I mean, we have reels. We're required by the state to keep these documents for eternity, but we have no way to read them. Prior to the inception of appraisal districts, all of those records, the best thing I can tell you would go to be the assessor records in the courthouse. That would give you taxes paid, and that would give you ownership. They might have other information I cannot answer before 1980, but I can tell you it's not in our office because we didn't exist. So there was somebody that came into our office a month ago or so looking for some information, and they ended up getting it from the county faster than we could find it, so decades ago. Yes, sir.
Hey, Scott, I'm not sure if I interpreted what you said earlier correctly or not, but you said, like for instance, on Main Street, when you only have one sale in a year, you don't treat individual years as if they're the only entity to look at, do you? If there was sales, in December of the prior year, and it's only April, that's very relevant. Wouldn't you take that into account?
We do use sales for more than 12 months. Our valuations, almost all the valuations in our office are based on January 1st as the appraisal date. And very few sales happen on January 1st.
Agreed.
But we use sales going back and going forward. Fee appraisals, nothing happens after the date of appraisal. In appraisal districts, we have a span. We straddle the appraisal date. We'll go back 2 years. We can go back up to a maximum of 3 years if we have no other sales information that supersede it, better information. So we can use sales going back 24 months from January 1st. We will use sales, like for 2026, we will use all the sales information we get until I have to shut down and send out notices of appraised value.
Okay.
So,
but if there's so few years that you would call it statistically insignificant, you'll go back in time up to 3 years till you get what you feel is a statistically representative data set. Is that correct?
To defend our values, yes, sir.
Okay.
And we're not changing them for 3 years after the fact, typically because of a sale 3 years ago, but in defense, we're using multiple sales.
Then I just had one more question, and this is very early on in your talk, which has been very good, by the way. At the beginning, you talked about how it seemed like to me a very large percentage of your time was going out and searching for data, various websites, going through aerial photography, even driving around looking for sale signs. I mean, how much of the data that you need and use every day, do we have a system in place so that data is pushed to your office versus your office going out and trying to pull everything they need? Because what you described to me sound ludicrous. So that was just my reaction to it.
I'm one person. There's 16 people in our office, including me. So I'm one person. We have 4 field appraisers. We have an appraisal manager. We have a business personal property person. So the appraisers, the field appraisers, they're out in the field doing things. They're not typically driving the roads for 2 weeks to figure out. No, they're going out to go to inspect a property when they see another property. So sort of 2 birds with 1 stone there. Our aerials, we pay for a service when we get our aerials. We pay for a service that will compare the last aerial to this aerial and give us a listing of properties we need to look at for new structures, change structures, demolished structures. So, that automated? Yes, that is. I mean, that is. We get the entire county. They compare. Yeah.
Or do you have to go in with human eyes and look for the changes?
That the changes, we get a listing of changed properties. So we're not looking at every square inch of the county. Their companies, algorithms, or computers are doing that. We're getting a listing of properties to narrow in on. So instead of 36,000 properties, we're looking now at 6,000 or 8,000 properties to see what changes, minor or major, were. And then do we need to go look at them boots on the ground? Yes, ma'am.
Morning, Scott. Thank you for being here. I have a question about your interaction with the comptroller's office at the state. How do y'all work together? And also with that, how could we go onto their website and delve through all the data to kind of figure out what we might want to learn more about in terms of budget transparency?
Could you ask the first part again?
Yeah. How do you work with the comptroller's office? You mentioned they're kind of your boss, but can you elaborate a little bit?
They're oversight, but they're not oversight. And this all goes back to our rules and regulations are written by the Texas legislature. The Texas legislature this is a 1983-84 Texas Property Tax Code book. Nice big print. I can read it without glasses. Nice and thin. This is what the legislature started, or this is the second iteration of what the legislature started out. 1998, my first year in an appraisal district, this is the code book. And yes, the font got smaller. So, brand new code book for 2026. They call it 2025. Bigger, not quite as thick. Font, I think they went down another font size. And I just show this because this is 46 years of changes. The property tax system is getting more complex every legislative session. Almost all of our rules come from the legislature. They might tell us that we have to go to this code book or that code book. Almost all of our job comes out of the Texas Property Tax Code. We're a governmental entity, so we also have to go to local government code and another code and this code. Part of that, the legislature tells the comptroller, the beginning of this code book, there's a whole section on comptroller. This is what the comptroller has to do to oversee-ish, to data mine, get information from appraisal districts, and report most of it back to the legislature, or put it on their website for public dissemination. So they're not really an oversight. In our office as a whole, we don't have a whole lot of interaction. I have interaction with a few people at the comptroller's office. Mostly they're field people. I hold no harm to them. They're doing their job like I'm doing my job. Y'all aren't shooting me because I'm doing my job. I'm not going to shoot them. I will have a discussion with their manager about how I don't like the process. So we really use interactive people. We don't do much. Interacting with their website, we go to their website, and the easiest way is to search Texas Comptroller and then look under taxes and property taxes. It's a whole page that the Property Tax Assistance Division has, and then after that, good luck, hunt and peck and figure out what you need. I've been using their website for years, so I can almost go to the right section and start hunting on their page, but it's a lot of information. It has videos for property owners on how to appeal your valuations, how to do this, how to do that. It has information pages. Truth in taxation. Who knows what truth in taxation is? A few people know what truth in taxation is. All of the guidelines, there's videos, guidelines, information sheets on how to do that, as well as the sheets to do truth in taxation. Truth in taxation, for those that are not familiar, I, as assessor by contract for the taxing units, after I certify the values, I turn around and start working on truth in taxation spreadsheet or web pages, sheets, data, that the taxing units, it gives the taxing units the parameters of what they can do for a tax rate. It gives them the maximum rate for this, the maximum rate for that. That is what the truth in taxation does. As a little bit of a plug, multiple years ago, how many years ago, Melissa? 6, 8 years ago, the legislature said, appraisal districts, you have to have another website. You're supposed to have one, but we're going to make you have another one. And you cannot put your name anywhere on it. And you need to put your data for each property on there. And then as the truth in taxation season goes through, you need to put the information on there. You need to put for every taxing unit that is having a meeting discussing the tax rate, you need to put that meeting on this website. There's a website out there, and it does not have our name on it, but it has every one of your properties on there. It shows you all of your taxing units for that property, and later this year in August and September, it will show when the meetings are that are discussing tax rates. So I just can't remember exactly what the website is.
Wait a second. Hi, George Studer here. Hi, I just wanted to follow up on the conversation we had over coffee, and I'm interested to see who has influence. You're supposed to be independent, and it sounds from this that the Texas Comptroller and the PTAD are not strong influences, and you report to your board, but if someone or some entity comes in and says, we really think you should change the valuation of that property, is that recorded? You know, let's say some big investment group from overseas or someplace says, no, we want your property to be valued to be this or that. Do you have to record that? And do you allow them to, you know, what are the other influences, I guess, that could come, and do you document them?
My biggest influence on how I do my job is the Texas Property Tax Code, where it states that I shall appraise properties at 100% of market value. That is my biggest influence. I mean, that's, every year I basically have to swear to ethics, and I'm supposed to be upholding my job. So that is my biggest influence, is doing my job the way that the code book says to. Honestly, my biggest influence, they can't influence me on values, but if they do not like the way I'm doing my job, is my bosses, my board of directors. I have one board of director here, I have 2 former board of directors in here, so.
But if somebody does come in and try to influence, you got your job, and then somebody...
If somebody comes in and tries to influence me, if they're from a taxing unit, I've got to shut it down. If they're my board of directors, I have to shut it down. That is a criminal offense. Hopefully I can shut it down before documentation is required. So really it's, the oversight is minimal except for the property value studies on my values, except for my ethics and what the code book tells me to do. Not the best answer that you like, I know.
Hey Scott, good to see you.
Yes, sir.
I've been meeting with a lot of small groups in our town, and I had a meeting not too long ago with a group that was talking about the valuation of the hospital. So, and I didn't have the answer to this, but they felt it was highly undervalued relative to potentially what the sale was. So my question is, are hospitals valued differently than commercial properties, or is there other criteria that's involved with hospitals?
A hospital's a business. Businesses can be simple or complex. Anybody that has a sale price, verified sale price for the hospital, I'd love to have it. That sale price was not what they purchased the real estate for. They purchased a business that's ongoing. There's multiple parts to that they're buying, not just the real estate. So that is part of the problem that people might not understand. There are things that I cannot appraise that were part of that purchase. I can appraise the real estate. Multiple real estate, not just that central one. There were multiple properties in that transaction. There was a lot of business personal property. Add that value in, and you know, what we have the hospital appraised for goes up a bit. So then there's other things that I cannot value. Code book tells me I can't value it. So I don't have a straight answer for you on there, except for I think I'm a lot closer to the correct value than a lot of people think I am. So.
Since he brought it up, okay. So there's a $35 million expansion of the wellness center going up on the property that was purchased as a part of the hospital back then. And that's a huge increase in, I would expect, in the value of the property.
Does the hospital own the wellness center?
The hospital does not create healthy management. Used to, and then they sold it to the foundation. So the foundation owns the property now. I just wondered how that. It's a big building, and the whole community knows, you know, 35 million is a big addition, and just wonder if that'll be appraised as a hospital or a different entity now.
I could. Going back in time, the hospital, when I started here, was exempt. When it sold, it became not exempt. Some of the other assets stayed with a nonprofit that by Texas Property Tax Code and application within the framework of the Texas Property Tax Code is exempt. So they can do $100 million worth of stuff. I can value it for 100, I can value it for 50, I can value it for 150. I'm supposed to be at market value, so I'm hoping I'm at 100. And it's not taxable because it's exempt.
I thought you just said it became non-exempt when it's sold.
We're talking about the hospital. Not everything that the hospital was running when the hospital sold, not everything transferred. Some of the, there was, the wellness center is what he's speaking of. Yes, the wellness, excuse me. I crossed over there, but yeah, I did not.
Hey, Scott, I'll come back to you one more time. Earlier in the discussion, I think you said you don't look at MLS data. You may have even inferred you're prohibited from doing that?
I am not allowed to be a member of the local MLS.
Not a member, but as a private citizen, can't I get in and look at MLS data?
It's a private company.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
I will stick around if anybody has any questions you don't want to ask in front of everybody, or if we're out of time, then I will stick around and answer any more questions. So thank you all for having me today.
Thank you, Scott. All right. Moving on to the election, I'm going to have our city secretary talk a little bit about our council election coming up in terms of dates, voting locations, etc.
Okay, I just wanted to briefly tell you that our city general election will be held May 2nd, 2026, and that's where the city residents get to elect their council, their mayor, and right now we have 2 candidates running for mayor, and they are in the order that I'm going to state that you'll see on the ballot, and that starts with Emily Kirchner and Randy Briley, and they're both here today. And what I want to do before I go on, if it's okay with you, Clinton, call Emily up because we were going to give them an opportunity to speak. And I know you need to get to Austin, so why don't you come on up?
Good morning. I will be very brief because I don't feel that this is the proper venue to campaign. This is a city-sponsored event, but I am Mayor Pro Tem, so you are welcome to contact me and happy to answer questions in my role as Mayor Pro Tem, E. Kirchner at Fbg.Live. If you have campaign things, I'm happy to visit with you there as well, Emily4mayor.com. Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you, Emily. And Randy Briley?
Thanks and good morning, Randy Briley. I've been coming here, I think, for 3.5, 4 years. Time flies when you're having fun. So you all know me, I think. I'm excited to be running for mayor of Fredericksburg, and I agree with what Emily just said. This is not a place to do a stump speech, but I am doing small groups right now. I've met with 25, almost 30 individuals one-on-one. So I'm doing a lot of work. Small groups, if you have neighborhood meetings you'd like me to attend, please let me know. Reach out to me at Briley4mayor@iCloud.com, and happy to have any conversations that you would like. Thank you.
And for council members, we have Tony Klein. Tony, would you like to come up and say anything?
The older you get, the longer you talk, so I'll keep it limited too. I was born here. I was born on Main Street. It's now a antique shop or something. But I do have my experience for the last 4 years, so I'm looking for my third term, and it'll be my last one. So anyway, thank you.
Charlie Keeney.
Yeah, thank you. You know, when I go to meetings, I hear people say, I moved here a year ago, I moved here 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I arrived here in 1950, and I had privilege of being on Main Street from 1974 to 2000. I got to watch the whole transition of Fredericksburg. Back in the day when you were my age, kid, you could ride sidewalks at 5 o'clock before they rolled them up. I am running for city council. I've been there. And if you have any questions for me later the day after this meeting, I'll be happy to stay and visit with you. Thank you so much.
Gary Neffendorf? I don't see Gary. And Jerry Lookingbach.
Well, my name is Jerry Lookinbaugh, and I've been, thinking about it. I've been out of this for quite a while, and I got on in running for city council, and I've known Tony. Tony was born about 5 doors down from where I was born, and Charlie. I've known Charlie. I know Gary, and I know Emily. I've talked with her. I need to talk with Randy, and I went to a seminar once, and they said, well, you have 2 ears in one mouth and use them in that proportion. So what I'm trying to do is go ahead and listen and see what's going on and talk to individuals and see if there's a problem there. This appraisal, it was really good. I enjoyed your speech there. That, a lot of people say, well, why are our taxes so high? Well, it's not the city that's doing it. So, there's things that are brought up, and whether they're true or not, you need to listen to them. And then our city staff is just fantastic. And I would like to sit down with them and find out their answers, and then go back to whoever's making a comment or something like that and say, well, this is the way it is. And I don't know, I really enjoyed being on city council. Like I said, we have a great staff. I enjoy going up there and talking to them and being around them, and I'll be glad to do that again. If you want me, I'm Jerry Lookinbaugh.
So some of the important dates we need to put out there just for your knowledge is April 20th is the first day of early voting. That's early voting at 95 Frederick Road at the elections office from 8 to 5 p.m. That goes throughout that entire week. So through the 24th, you can vote at 95 Frederick Road from 8 to 5. That Saturday and Sunday following that, we don't have voting, but we will continue on that Monday, which is the 27th and the 28th, with early voting beginning at 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you don't get an opportunity to vote those days, you can go on election day, and that's from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Another important date, if you're not registered to vote in the city of Fredericksburg, the last day to vote or to register to vote in this election is April the 2nd. So make sure you register to vote before you go vote, if you're not. The last thing I wanted to mention, this is a joint election with the Fredericksburg ISD, so you'll also have on your ballot the Board of Trustee elections. So just know that will also be on your ballot, as well as a bond election proposition. Remember to take a photo ID with you to the polling place. It is required in the state of Texas, so you will have to show some form of ID. And last but not least, please go vote. Thank you.
Where do you register to?
You register to vote at 95 Frederick Road, and that's at the county elections office. Thank you for that.
Just send that down. Okay, thank you, and thank you, council members and candidates, for saying a few words. So we have a couple of candidate forums coming up. The ones I know about, there's one coming up March 31st. It's the Central Hill Country Board of Realtors is hosting a candidate forum, and it's at the Edge at 5:30 on March 31st. So that's one. The next one, the Chamber is hosting a candidate forum. That is on April 13th. Help me out a little bit. April 13th, I believe that one starts at 5 o'clock. At the Fredericksburg Theater. So look for those. If you're interested in getting to know your council and mayoral candidates and asking them a few questions, make sure that you try to make one of those. Don Weinheimer, County Commissioner, I'm going to give you the opportunity to get up here and say a few words. I know you've recently had an election. So the city and the county, I feel, have a good relationship, better than it has been. Certainly in past years, we work together on a lot of things throughout the year. We meet a number of times jointly talking about the budget, other things, so we definitely consider the county a partner. Don's been here before. He gave us the County 101 discussion, really good. We can have him back or another commissioner to do that if you're interested, but Don Weinheimer.
Thank you very much, Clinton. And Scott, thanks for being here. So we're not the most hated people in the room, so I appreciate that. I just want to actually mention a couple things that we have going on in the county. Firstly, we are actually submitting to the Texas Historical Commission a request to get funding to restore the 1939 courthouse that we currently are in, 87-year-old courthouse, and restoring the library, which is 144 years old today. So we'll get funding, hopefully, from the state of Texas to do restoration work on both of those. And that's a multi-year process. We have to apply, and then after we apply, then we'll go through and do cost estimates and things of that nature. So we're looking forward to that. The second thing I want to mention, this is not really a county thing, but the state of Texas, through the last legislative session, granted more money to expand weather measurements in the state of Texas. And so Texas Tech University is heading this fund, or heading this project, and we're looking for spots right now in the northwestern part of the county to put in a major radar facility. And so that's part of the expansion of what they call the West Texas Mesonet, and it will feed into the National Weather Service. And so we're pretty excited that we have the opportunity to get really better information with respect to ongoing and forecasting weather here in the county. So we're actually working with Texas Tech and landowners right now to try to find somebody that will go ahead and allow that radar system to be put on their property. The third thing I want to mention is that we are currently open on our hotel occupancy tax application forms, and they are due by March 30th. And the last thing I want to mention, I'm going to talk about it real briefly, is the battery energy storage systems. So there's been a lot of discussion about that. There's two of them that are currently attempting to come into the county. One of them is the Rogers Draw facility over in Harper, and we currently have a stop work order in place. We currently have a lawsuit against them on behalf of the county and the public, and we currently have a temporary injunction that's been agreed to between ourselves, the citizen lawsuit, and also the company that's putting that in. So that's on hold. We're pending litigation with respect to whether that facility goes forward or not. The second one is actually a solar panel facility and a battery energy storage facility. It's referred to as the Marshall Springs facility. It's on Highway 16 North, and that is a facility that is trying to come in. There's a lot of private groups that are working to try to derail it, if you will, and we are also looking at it from a public health perspective to see if there's anything we can do at a county level. So the two differences here in terms of what we can do is, one is regulatory items that we can regulate, and the state gives us a few things there around floodplain, fire code, and sanitation. But if a company meets those, then we have to provide those permits. The second is from a public health perspective, and that's the way we're trying to pursue some ability to slow these things up or stop them. So with that, if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
This is more in the form of a statement as opposed to a question. having looked at a lot of the data that's out there and looked at websites, I can't think of any more important issue this county as a whole faces than the safety of the children, the safety of our water supply, because that is just an amazing amount of danger to every citizen in this country, much less here. If something goes wrong, those types of fires just can't be put out like ordinary fires. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, you know these things, but I would really implore you, and that word is specific, to put as much attention, as much time, and as much focus on the safety of the citizens and our water supply. We all are worried about the water supply just from overuse, much less the permanent destruction of the safety of our water. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am. And that's actually what our suit is about with respect to Rogers Draw. So thank you.
Don, thank you for your service, and better you than me sitting up there. If you would explain to the public the purpose of these BESS facilities, my understanding is that they are drawing power from the ERCOT grid at night when rates are lower, and then selling power back to the ERCOT grid during the day when rates are higher. Is that correct?
Well, let me say this, is that the county has, we didn't go after these things. We didn't ask them to come in here. They came on their own, and we're trying to understand and learn them. What you mentioned is what we understand about Rogers Draw, is that they'll pull off the grid and push it back on the grid. But that's just my understanding as a layman on this. We are not actively engaged with them. We have not solicited them. We are not part of the requirement for them to come in. There is a property owner that made their property available, and they chose that spot to be close to a substation. So that's what I understand that facility is that it'll pull off the grid and push back on the grid. But that's, again, just my understanding from a distance, if you will. So. George is over here.
Don, are you getting any strong support from the Texas Underground Water District folks and TCEQ? And so the TCEQ guys are the element that enforces, water quality, and how much support are you getting from that side of the fence in fighting the health side of these things?
Yeah, so I would say from TCEQ, we're getting very little support. And the word I hear a lot of times is that those are licensing organizations. They're not regulatory. And so this is just my personal perspective, is that the state of Texas is encouraging these things to happen because they feel like it'll support the grid, where we had a major grid failure several years ago. And so what I believe is that the state is allowing counties to fight these things, but they're not fighting them with us. That's my general perception. We do get some guidance and help, but very little. And I'm even speaking about our representatives and our senators. I just don't feel like we get a lot of help. And so the most help we get is actually intelligence with citizens that are experienced with this, and they come to the court and they help us understand these things. We had a learning curve coming up to speed on batteries just like everybody else. When the Moss Landing fire happened in 2025, the U.S. became much more aware of the dangers of these, and that's raised everybody's education and understanding of what's the potential with these facilities.
Yeah, when I looked at it before, there's a group in Austin that's kind of the regulatory part, and there's in the TCEQ, and the enforcement part is in San Antonio. And I have the names of the guys. I've talked to them before, and I just think we need to put more pressure on TCEQ enforcement. Same kind of things, same guys that would make sure that your wells and water are not contaminated.
Yeah, the county has engaged actually 2 outside engineering firms and an outside law firm to assist us in our efforts here. So we are sourcing experts where we can. I'll turn it back to you, Clinton. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Don. Okay, new City Hall. So as a lot of you know, we have been remodeling the former Hill Country University Center out on 290 East for our new City Hall. We're nearing the end of that effort. We have started having our council meetings in that location. In fact, the last council meeting that we had was in the new chambers. The next coffee with the city manager will be at that location, so we can show that off just a little bit. Move in probably sometime toward the end of April, very early May. So City Hall as you know it, all of the folks in that building will be relocating to this new facility. Just a reminder, the existing City Hall will be converted to both our fire EMS admin offices. Instead of being spread out, they'll be in one place. We'll also have our police department substation on the first floor with a 24-hour access window for any kind of service you may need through the police department. If I could get Garrett to come up and talk just a little bit quickly. Yes, sir.
At the new City Hall, will that be in the chambers or will it be someplace else in the building?
That will be in the chambers. I think that's going to be the only space that we can occupy without some kind of construction going on right now. Note that, we'll advertise that, and it'll be in the chambers at the new City Hall. Tim?
Is the general public going to be able to continue to pay their utility bill at the old city office?
We're going to make a transition between the two. Can you answer that exactly, Garrett?
Is this working? We'll have the drop box there still, so you can still drop off payments at Old City Hall.
On the side, on the Crockett Street side, correct?
That's correct.
Is there still a drop box over by the bank?
For now, that could go away in the future. We're just going to monitor and see how many people are continuing to use it.
Thank you.
So real quickly, last month we've talked about Texas Historical Commission and their operation of Fort Martin Scott. So last month, the council approved an agreement to expand that partnership, so it now includes the former Texas Rangers site. So as part of that, the former Texas Rangers parking lot, drive aisle, and event space will become the main entrance to Fort Martin Scott. You should start seeing those improvements in the next couple of weeks. Also, as part of that agreement, the state will be building what they're calling the Frontier Experience at Fort Martin Scott. It's an interactive heritage center. So along the same lines as the plan for the former Texas Rangers site. Under the terms of that agreement, the state has 3 years to develop a concept plan, 7 years to acquire funding, and 10 years to get operational. We've been told it's going to be way ahead of schedule. I think they expect to get some major funding through this year's legislative session, or next year's legislative session. One other thing I wanted to mention, as part of that agreement, Gillespie County residents, not just city residents, will have free admission to the site. And that's for the forever. So really good deal. One other thing to mention, the state is going to be bringing in the state longhorn herd. That should happen in the next couple of weeks. So be watching for a bunch of longhorns out there. Thank y'all.
All right. Thank you, Garrett. Just a couple of other, yes, sir.
Follow up to your question.
Hang on 1 second.
Follow up to that. Does that mean that the lawsuit has been settled?
Not yet. So we are coordinating with the city attorney, but the lawsuit is still pending.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Garrett. Just a couple of other updates. We've talked a lot about water over the last decade plus. We continue to talk about water, making that a top priority. We have a lot of water initiatives ongoing currently. I mentioned to the group last time, we're looking at our long-term water supply, trying to diversify that. We're 100% groundwater currently. We're looking at options for reuse of our reclaimed water, effluent coming out of the wastewater treatment plant. A lot of different options there. We're updating our 2017 water wastewater master plan. We've completed a lot of projects in the original plan. just shy of 30 million in projects over the last decade or so. We're updating that plan. We'll have a number of new projects that come out of that. We're also pursuing the development of an additional well field, underground water well field for the city. Anytime we have an opportunity to do that and spread out that supply, we take advantage of that or at least explore that opportunity. So we're currently doing that. Additionally, we are adding a Public Works education position to our staff. That position will talk not only to the community, different school campuses about water conservation, but also things like recycling, electricity, just the full gamut of public works. So we hope to have that position hired and on staff in the next couple of months when we move into the new City Hall. Items coming up on future agendas, we have the Native Plant Society that has come forward wanting to do a few demonstration projects on Main Street to plant native plants. If you drive Main Street, if you walk Main Street, you know in some areas we need to upgrade some of the landscaping. Instead of planting these high water intensive plants, we're looking at more native landscape. These areas would be planted, quite possibly maintained by volunteers in the Native Plant Society. After this demonstration project, a couple of different areas, we're looking at a phased approach to doing more of that up and down Main. Waldorf Astoria, coming up April 7th during the regular council meeting. The council will be discussing the possibility of amending the city's thoroughfare plan, modifying that plan to move a thoroughfare off of the map that interferes with that project and consider an alternate route. So in a study that was recently completed by an engineering firm that the city hired, paid for by the developer, we restudied the route. The current line that's on the map has been on the map, the thoroughfare plan map, since about 2006, and we studied 2 additional routes. So the council will be discussing that, whether to amend that thoroughfare plan to accommodate that development. CVB, Convention and Visitor Bureau. As you may know, the former CVB CEO resigned about 4 or so months ago. Has it been a little bit longer than that? Okay, November of last year. So the CVB board has been pursuing a new CEO. When they opened that position and accepting applications, I think they had 65 applications nationwide, so a lot of interest in that position. They narrowed that down to 14, then 4, then 3, and I believe they have narrowed that down to 1 individual that they will be making an offer to sometime this week. So more to come on that. We have Jenny Stout with us from CVB. Jenny, anything to add to that?
I'll be honest, all 3 of the candidates that they brought in market, the process for the interview is a...
One sec.
The process for the interviews was they came in, they had dinner with the search committee, so they got lots of one-on-one personal time with all the individuals, then they had a formal interview, then they did a presentation, and then they got a tour of the city. And so it's a very intensive interview process, but I'm very excited about all 3 of them, actually. So.
And I think when you look at the top 4 candidates, there were 2 from Texas, 1 from Arkansas, 1 from California.
Yes.
And I'm not going to say where the final candidate is from at this point, but coming up. Okay, town hall meetings. So as a lot of you also know, a couple of years ago we made it around town, did about 25 neighborhood town hall meetings. literally meeting in people's driveways. We have a number of hosts here. Some people have actually hosted twice as we're getting into the second round of these. We got into these toward the end of the year last year. The time changed. We ran out of daylight. Now with the daylight savings time, we're starting to schedule those again. So we're looking for individuals in these different areas that may be willing to host one of these town halls. We typically have myself. We've had the entire council present at a number of these, the police chief, various city staff. Much like this, talking about city business on your turf, asking questions. You can ask us questions sitting right next to your neighbor. You don't have to show up to a council meeting or give us a call and make a special appointment. So look for those. We'll send out an invitation to everyone, but we're looking for folks that want to host, and we'll be making our way around throughout this year. Speaker requests. Scott Fair is here by request of this group. We have a couple of other speaker requests that we have currently. Before I go around the room, be thinking about additional speakers that you would like for us to get here. I know that we have the county judge that will be with us in the near future. We have representatives from TxDOT that will be here. We've had a request for hospital staff, Create Healthy again. So be thinking about who you would like to see up here. And then finally, before I go around the last coffee, I asked everyone to bring their neighbor. And I see a few new faces in the crowd. Is this your neighbor, George?
Practically.
Practically? Okay, well, he's an individual that I have not seen here before. How many of you, is this your first coffee with the city manager? So we have, shame on you, Brandon. Local architect, the mastermind behind the City Hall remodel project, has never been here before. So we might put him on the spot at some point so he can talk about his involvement and development around the community, if you'd be willing to do that. But
and his name is Rob Hauser.
Rob Hauser, okay. Well, what I typically do at this point of the meeting is I go around the room. Do you have something, Tom?
Can you talk, would you tell what transportation is happening on Friendship Lane, the road work that's going on Friendship Lane?
Can you hand the mic to the gentleman behind you?
Sure. So the work that you see, construction activity at the intersection of Creek and Friendship Lane, is the developer putting in the center turn lane and decel lane for the Creek Street intersection there that goes into Friendship Oaks. Got an update from the contractor yesterday. It's about 30 more days before they complete that. So, and obviously that depends on the weather. So we were supposed to proof roll today the subgrade. I doubt that's going to happen based on the rain last night, which we're blessed to get. But that could delay it just a little bit. But about 30 to 40 days for completion of those improvements at that intersection by the contractor.
Yes, sir.
Clinton, talking about the Native Plant Society on Main Street, is what appears to me to be a bunch of weeds in front of the Hotel Albert, is that the beginning of the Native Plant Society working on trying to get native plants done?
So we joke about that, Tim, and those although those may be native plants, we're looking at more appealing planting.
They certainly need to have a haircut for sure.
Yeah, and I think everybody would agree, and they got that message. So we have a plant list that's probably 10 pages long. It's Alan Kirchhoff and Jonathan Watt that will be presenting to the council. And the council will be able to make a decision on where they want, what type of plants. You know, again, it's an opportunity to upgrade some of these areas that need a little bit of help, a demonstration project the community can get involved in. So again, it'll be a council decision in the end. But no, it will not just be some of the, well, it's not. And there's a difference between native plants that don't need a lot of water and begonias, you know. So we're going to try to meet somewhere in the middle, you know, with something that's appealing, but at the same time doesn't take a lot of water. So that is coming up.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Andrea?
Good morning, Andrea Schmidt with the City of Fredericksburg Parks Department. I just wanted to real quickly mention a couple of events and programs the city has coming up. We are doing a community art project for the country's 250th anniversary, so watch for information to come out on that. There are going to be some tiles that we're going to allow the community to pre-register for. It's a more advanced art project, so you'll come into the John Klein room, you'll paint these tiles, and they'll all come together to make this really neat image to celebrate the country's 250th. Then we will install the mural at the new City Hall. So watch for information to come out for that here in the next few weeks. And then second, you saw up there earlier, the city's 7th annual Touch-A-Truck is coming up on March 26th. It'll be from 3:30 to 6:30 at Market Square. All the city departments will be there with information that you can ask questions about, or the kids can climb on vehicles and check out the city equipment. So we encourage you to come by there as well and get some free ice cream from Clear River. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Andrea. Okay, I'm going to go around the room. If you're new, I'm anxious to know who you are, maybe how long you've lived here, how you found out about this, and certainly if anyone has any questions for us. We have a number of staff here. We'll try to answer those. If not, we'll get right back to you. But I'll start with our good friend, George Studer.
Well, I am a friend, and I'm really thankful for this meeting, and you always run it every month so well, and so kudos to you and everyone who supports. I have a question about, do you have any organization or committee that's looking at how we're going to celebrate the 250th? I just hadn't heard much besides Andrea mentioning it. Do you have other things that are going on that people should plug into?
We don't have a specific organization or committee put together at this point, to my knowledge, but there have been a number of discussions with the mayor, council member, others about putting something like that together for a celebration. I agree that, yeah, no, it's for everyone. I'm answering your question for everyone. But certainly something we will pursue in the future, George. Yes, sir. Mr. Hauser?
Yeah, once again, Rob Hauser. So I've moved here to Fredericksburg about a year and a half ago. I came here because I heard about the Hill Country from a co-worker, if you will, kind of from a different company. And she said it was the greatest place on earth. So I said, I got to check this place out. But I said to myself, I wonder where she's lived before. And so she said her and her husband spent the first 40 years in Napa, California. And I went to school at UC Berkeley. And I said, wow, Napa, California is awful nice. I got to go check this place out. So that's, I think I'll never leave. It's fantastic, yeah. Greatest place I've ever lived, I think.
I hear that a lot, yeah. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, so, yeah, it is a tremendous job on the meeting. I guess I would make one comment. I know there's a lot of opposition to these best facilities, but I don't know a lot about this, but for instance, I worked in the aviation industry. That's why George and I are such good friends. We both worked aerospace. And like, I'm sure that every hangar in the airport where they have, live electronics with jet fuel, I worked in several hangars in various locations, and you fight those types of fires not with water but with foam. And typically, if you're in a large hangar, even if it's 100 feet high, if a tremendous fire breaks out, that entire volume of that hangar will be filled with fire retardant foam. So I'm certain that these best facilities, if there was the right requirements, they could make them safe. They can make them non-fire hazardous. Anything can be solved. You don't fight these types of fires with water. And they never would. So if you put the right requirements on these facilities, I know they can be made safe. And I think it's it's an arbitrage opportunity, it sounds like. Buy when the rates are low, sell it back to the grid when the rates are high. But if they put the storage facilities in place where they can, pardon me, keep the electricity in battery, convert AC to DC and then put it back, it's actually a service. So I don't think we should just reject these outright. We should make sure it's done right.
Right. Emerging technology, you're right. A fire related to one of these facilities cannot be addressed with water. Typically, they cover them up with sand or some type of earth. These are very large facilities. It's my understanding there are about 1,000 of these planned for construction in the state of Texas over the next decade or so. So it's something that's not going away. We have 1,000 people moving to the state every day, so that population growth increases that energy demand. So this is one of those ways to get additional energy back into the system during those peak periods, which is the problem. But we're not quite there yet. A lot of risk, especially when you build one of these close to a school or a community. We've seen some of the incidents nationwide over the last year or so, last couple of years. So hopefully they will figure that out. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Fredericksburg. Yes, sir.
We're Don and Janine Davison, and we've had our family property, which originally was a peach farm, since the 70s, and we're watching with great interest the Moore Street proposal bypass, and that's why we've started attending these meetings and our concern what the effect that would have on our property.
Right. Thank you for being here. Your property looks wonderful with the new fence and so forth. Those guys were working very hard on that. I want to clarify, this isn't a Moore Street bypass. It is an extension end to end. We talked about a bypass, a $300 million, very low access, high speed truck route, which is a bypass. This is not a bypass. It's a street extension project. Yes, sir.
Charlie Keeney, and I want to give Ms. Ernadita Heinl this comment. People say how long you've lived here. Some will say I've lived here all my life, and she would say I haven't lived all my life here yet. What I was referring to when I said, have you been here a week or 75 plus years, it's so important to become a fabric of our quilt, of our community and city. Be involved, whether financially or more importantly, with your time. And a lot of faces here I don't know, and when I go to the HEB, they're probably 90% from Fredericksburg, but I don't know who they are, don't know where they get involved. Get involved with your church, get involved with the social aid organization, but somehow become part of the fabric of the beautiful quilt we have here. I will say this, back in the old days, by golly, we need to take these newcomers and drive them out of town on a train. And I'd tell that guy, there's probably a bunch of locals that ought to be on the same train when it leaves. Thank you.
We don't have a train.
Had their annual banquet the other night. And anyone know how many people attended that in total, Tom? About 500? There were about 100 people, maybe a few more than 100 that raised their hands. That was their first chamber banquet, and they were new to town. So you're right. We see a lot of folks moving to town that are continuing to shape the community from what it has been in the past. A lot of what we have is a culmination of folks moving in, working with folks that have lived here for a long time. So, yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say, I know you've got the Touch a Truck coming up, and that is wonderful. You hear adults and kids talking about it, but I would encourage you, since it will soon be budget season, to put a sign on those trucks that tell you how much that fire truck or that ambulance costs, so when people go, well, why are they spending all that money, they'll have a little bit better idea of where that money goes.
Right, and we give you and your husband credit for that, and I believe that's something that we're going to do this year. So thank you for that suggestion.
I appreciate the commissioner talking about the best facility. Fortunately, we aren't going to have one in town. We have a number of electric vehicle charging stations that are on public streets. One's just about 50 yards from the Girl Scout house. You can't put out a lithium battery fire. You submerge the car into a container and fill it with sand, and it burns for a week. We don't have the foam. The $10,000 per person hazmat suit that firefighters have to wear then has to be thrown away, and you can only use it once. The hospital doesn't have the ability to be able to react to people who do this, and as you're pouring 40,000 gallons an hour on the fire to try and just suppress it, not put it out. It's flowing into the creek through a cut right there. Can we reconsider why we have these things on public right-of-ways? Somebody wants to recharge their car in their house, that's fine, that's their business. If a private business wants to have a charging station outside their motel, that's their business. But do we need to have these on public streets?
Well, that's a good question, and we've had questions like the city doesn't own any gas stations. Why do we own electric car charge stations? In that particular location, those were installed I want to say about a decade ago, about 10 years ago, 7 to 10 years ago.
Yeah, since we've been here, so it's in the last 7 years.
Yeah, about 7 years probably, and we recently, a couple of years ago, installed a few, just I guess that would be south of the courthouse right there. But that's a good point, and that's not our preferred location. We certainly note your concerns there, along with battery facilities. That's something that we talk about, something that we are prepared to respond to the best of our ability, but we're working on that.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Last thing we want to do is contaminate the groundwater. I mean, it's one thing to try and clean a creek. It's
Right.
another thing to try and clean the aquifer.
Right. Completely agree. Yes, sir.
Oh.
Mr. Spencer.
Pass. We know the Longhorns are coming to Fort Martin Scott. Are the Camels?
Where's Garrett? They're supposed to be coming. Sean, do you have an answer? Are you a Camel fan?
Yes.
Okay.
I think those will be part of a rotating thing, not a permanent placement there at Fort Martin Scott. Yeah, Garrett had to step out to another meeting, but that's my understanding as it is now.
Good morning.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Jenny Stout. I don't really have anything.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
No problem.
Anything?
Okay. I'm new, so I thought I'd introduce myself. I'm Haley. I work at the Convention and Visitor Bureau. I'm the newest marketing person, so I think I've talked to some of y'all, but not everyone. So it's nice to meet y'all.
Okay. Let's go right here, and then we'll kind of circle back.
John McManus, been to this meeting multiple times. We've been in Fredericksburg for 10 years.
Thank you all for being here. Mr. Weinheimer.
Yes, I am Brandon Weinheimer, born and raised in this area, part of the Stonewall Weinheimers, distantly related to Don, 3 or 4 generations back, I believe. Yes, I'm a partner with SKT Architects, currently involved with the City Hall project. In fact, we have a meeting in about 10 minutes with our contractor, so they'll be out there shortly, but proud to be part of this community and have moved back here to live and work and raise a family. So I believe Sean invited me to speak at one of these events maybe next month. So look forward to seeing you all again.
Brandon's done a great job. He had not a single gray hair before this project started. Yes,
Hi,
ma'am.
Kate Walker, a fairly new resident, lived here 4 years now. I wanted to make 2 personal comments, if I may. The first one is how important it is to use a microphone at these meetings. I wasn't here last time. I watched it on live stream. Without the microphone, you could not hear what anybody said. No matter how loudly you speak, it has to be on the mic. So thank you for being more careful in using that. The second one is, I was recently in Indiana in West Lafayette, where Purdue University is. I was introduced to a new faculty member there who came from Austin. And so when I met her and I was told she came from Austin, I said, oh, I live in Fredericksburg. And her immediate response was, I've always wanted to live in Fredericksburg. Yes, indeed.
I just want to say I went to school with Brandon's dad. We were in the same class in Stonewall, and we were always jealous because his mom and dad let him go barefoot to school before anybody else in the spring.
Yes, sir.
I'm Bruce Harper. My wife and I have been residents here for 16 years.
We come to almost every one of these meetings. We have learned a lot, went to the university, learned a lot. Enjoy this place. We went on a cruise a couple of months ago that sailed out of Galveston, met a lot of people from Texas, tell them I lived in Fredericksburg, and they said, oh, that's my favorite town. So all I say is, let's keep up the good work.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being here.
Oh, one more question for Mr. Weinheim. Mr. Canasi over here. Are they still going to build that brewery on Creek and Creek and Friendship?
Yeah, it's under construction currently. What he's referring to is the extension of Creek Street where it ties into 87 South, formerly known as the Mellering Construction Facility. But yeah, that brewery is under construction. Yes, sir.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, for those of you that are the neighbor that your neighbor brought, bring your neighbor next time. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next month. Have a great rest of the week.
The community in Fredericksburg is growing, and we know that people choose to live here, and for very good reason. It's important that we have resources in place so that people can take care of themselves, so that our economy can keep moving, so that this community can continue to thrive. And this is our opportunity to help them stay well and stay part of the community as contributing members.
Please join us in keeping Fredericksburg and Gillespie County special. Be Texas friendly. Share the road. Put litter in its place. Respect private property. And protect our dark skies. Thank you for caring about our